Good afternoon to you, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your Hurricane Outlook and discussion for Saturday, August 20th, 2016. This is the time of year when I typically think the tropics should start to come to life, and that is indeed what we're seeing. Even if it's not prolific development right now, certainly there are players on the field, so to speak, and I'll talk about that as I progress through today's discussion. First up here in the Eastern Pacific, Tropical Storm K. Just wanted to touch upon this real quick. No threat to the Baja or Mexico, specifically the mainland part of Mexico there. This will turn out into the open Pacific and dissipate. So the Atlantic will definitely be the place to watch over the coming days. In terms of Western Hemisphere impacts, there's also some interesting goings-on out in the Western Pacific in typhoon land. That's really not my area of expertise. I don't have any way to ever get out there to study the impacts, and certainly can't take all the equipment that we have over there. It's not that I don't care, but this is the area that I'm most focused on, and that would be the Atlantic Basin in the Eastern Pacific. That being said, if you get a chance, check out what's going on in the Western Pacific with 4 different systems all out there kind of clustered east of Japan. It's pretty wild to see that. So in the Atlantic, we have Tropical Storm Fiona here, still going into the shear machine, as it were. Then we have Invest Area 99L, soon to be 90L over Africa still. And all of these systems are going to be interesting to watch over the next several days. The National Hurricane Center giving 99L a 60% chance of developing as it heads generally in this direction over the next several days. And then what will soon be Invest Area 90L will more than likely develop into a depression. They give it a 70% chance, and it would track a little bit more to the north. And all of these systems definitely bear watching. Not so much Fiona, I don't think, but we, again, don't just ignore it completely, and I'll explain why. Nice wide perspective here, showing most of the northern portion of Africa and parts of the Middle East. Here's our tropical wave coming off of Africa, Invest Area 99L, and then here's a shot of Fiona, and you can even see here, without putting it into motion, that there's definitely some wind blowing across the system instead of the air flowing out in a clockwise manner. That is very evident here, where you have upper level winds coming across, stretching all the clouds out away from that low level circulation, not allowing those thunderstorm bands to wrap around the low level center and to really keep that heat engine running efficiently. The wind shear doing its number on Fiona for sure. The forecast track taking it kind of up this way, dissipating eventually here over the Atlantic, well to the south and east of Bermuda. Meanwhile, basically convection free, but you can still see a pretty broad turning in here associated with 99L. Definitely a low level signature in here, but it just lacks convective activity, no thunderstorms or appreciable upward motion. A little bit more down here near the intertropical convergence zone, well south of 10 degrees latitude, but that's really not going to help the system too much, it doesn't look like. But the vorticity signature, not too bad, definitely increasing over the last 24 hours or so. So there's still some energy down there with the system. It's just not consolidating. It's a fairly large envelope of energy, and it lacks the thunderstorm activity that we look for. Meanwhile, there's Fiona, still nice and round in its appearance overall, and you can see a little bit more of that in association with K in the Eastern Pacific. Again, this is going to head out. No worries for the Baja. So this is a nice product from the Cooperative Institute for Meteorological Satellite Studies. It shows us the total precipitable water in the atmosphere, and you can see these different swirls. This would be Fiona and its life cycle here over the last 72 hours. This is Invest Area 99L. Then we've got this other system coming off Africa. Let me take the telestration away, and you can notice here, I'll just use my pointer, look at the very large envelope of energy. It ends up right here with 99L. There's definitely something there. I mean, we can see that on satellite picture and the vorticity signature. So it does have a lot of overall energy to work with. It's a big bundle of tropical wave energy, and you can see that counterclockwise rotation in there. No mistake. But for whatever reason, the instability out here in the main development region is still lacking enough. There's basically this warm, dry air layer sitting out here. Part of it is the Saharan air layer, but you can see even here that's kind of confined more to the north of the system. It's affected Fiona maybe a little bit, but it's just this overall stretch of real estate between Africa and the Lesser Antilles here that has been rather feeble in developing systems these last several years. Maybe even going all the way back to 2011 when Hurricane Irene formed, and it took it until way over in the western part of the basin to really get going. Strange, but it certainly keeps the systems excuse me, from being strong early, and that can be certainly good news for the islands here that, you know, if you had to deal with anything, you'd much rather it be a tropical wave or a depression. Even though we know those have their own impacts, it's certainly better than a hurricane that develops out here and comes plowing through. Think about Hugo in 1989, Marilyn and Luis back in 1995 are examples, and there are more than that as well. So this is interesting here to watch how this is evolving. Definitely have the moisture and the energy out there in parts of the atmosphere, even though the instability issues are there to keep these systems from developing. Now, as I said in my blog post today, and I made a pretty good point about it, that even though these systems aren't doing anything right now, and you can see on the Saharan air layer chart, yeah, this is pretty much just a naked swirl, if that. This is a lot more better organized, really. The longer these systems take to develop, the farther west they get. And it's not like I figured that out all by myself. It's very easy to understand that. Basically, if they develop early and they're very thick in the atmosphere, any weakness that might be out here in the subtropical ridge, they will feel it and turn harmlessly out to sea. You know, of course that happens, because otherwise we really couldn't live along the coast of the land areas of the western Atlantic basin. It would just be too dangerous if everything made it through and most of the tropical waves did develop. You know, it'd be uninhabitable. We'd have to live 25, 50 miles inland for fear of hurricanes, or have developed some way to mitigate against them much more than we're doing so now. Point being, the longer these things wait, the farther west that they will track. If we go back to this map, you think about 99L, if it doesn't get going until somewhere over here, I mean, it's already interacting with the islands through here, and all this energy will bring rain and squalls to parts of the Caribbean. And I know that the word hurricane gets a big headline, like that movie Jaws. Remember when the mayor talks to the police chief and he says, you know, you say the word shark, and people get upset, basically. You say the word barracuda, everybody kind of says, huh, what? But that word shark, you know, you don't say that unless you mean it. And you know, the word hurricane certainly incites a great deal of anxiety in people, and especially for those who don't understand all that there is to know, it's a problem. So that being said, when you get these systems coming through that are seemingly innocuous, and they're going to start to develop here in the eastern Caribbean, they still have these impacts with very heavy rain, and then they're only a few days away from the United States or elsewhere, is basically what I'm getting at here. So we'll see. You know, the models, if you've been following them, kind of weird on this one. In fact, all of these systems, it's kind of like the Atlantic doesn't know what to do according to the computer models. This has a really good vorticity signature already, but most of the models are not developing it much at all as it heads in this general direction over the next week. You know, I know it's kind of ridiculous to look that far out, but we have the technology to do so, and they're going back and forth. It's just crazy. So I guess wait and see from now on out. The upper levels, not as hostile as they could be. This is the sort of the MJO look, the 200 millibar upward motion chart. A little bit of green here in the Atlantic. The heaviest of the sinking motion is sitting here over the Indian Ocean for what it's worth, and that's juxtaposed to the very strong upward motion where the MJO is currently located. We'll put a check mark there. So this is more, you know, if you had to give it a grade, you get a, sort of give the Atlantic maybe a C to C minus, and the Western Pacific an A to A plus. Even though there's a lot of activity, there's not one singular powerful typhoon out there. But the Atlantic, you know, certainly isn't sitting with a grade F right now. in terms of overall favorability. Pretty decent sinking motion here with the brown showing up. But again, this green and the fact that this is a lot more evidence of sinking motion says, all right, well, things are marginally favorable overall in the Atlantic. Now, one thing I want to leave you with before I check out for the day, looking ahead to 5 days, if there was a system developing, let's just say, and here's 99L right here in the 5-day time frame, and this is the system coming off Africa now. This is the 500 millibar field up in the atmosphere, about 20,000 feet or so, and you can see that the heights of the atmosphere, the low heights are pulled fairly far to the north. What does that mean in layman's terms? Basically, this is a pattern that would allow systems to track farther west than most people would be comfortable with, let's say. So if 99L does develop, the pattern is going to look like it's setting up to steer it somewhere in the vicinity of the Bahamas. And then with 90L to be, well, we'll just wait and see about that. One other way to look at it, we don't see any of these big, deep troughs coming off the East Coast to yank these systems safely out to sea. That doesn't look like the pattern coming up. So if something were to develop, we definitely need to watch these closely because they don't look like they're going to just turn out to sea. I'm not saying they will definitely hit, but the pattern seems to be evolving that A, if you have something there, B, you better watch it because C, the pattern suggests a pretty far west track. All right, wish I had more than that for you, but it's really weird the way the models are behaving. Maybe these systems struggle and we don't get much development, but the fact that the Hurricane Center increased the odds of development for 99L to 60% and didn't lower them based on these sort of models disappearing the system off the map kind of thing, makes me wonder. Okay, well, maybe there's more to this than we know. Hey, time will tell, right? Have a great rest of your Saturday. Thanks as always for tuning in. Again, I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks as always for watching. I think I already said that. Called it tuning in. Hey, I'll talk to you again tomorrow.